Hi guys, and today I've got for you the Toyota Yaris Cross. What is a Yaris Cross? Well, it's kind of a jacked up Yaris really, an SUV version, or more accurately a crossover version of the very popular little Toyota hatchback. It's really got presence, and it does look and appear and does feel like a bigger car than a Yaris. But actually it's based on the same platform as the Yaris, which to be fair is also used by the Toyota Prius. This thing really stands out in its bi-tone brass gold. At the front is quite a bluff front, it's pretty much straight down, but it's quite an aggressive looking car. It's got angular lines on it. And overall, I would say it's quite a handsome thing. So as I said, it's the same platform as the Yaris, which means that it's actually got exactly the same wheelbase, but it is 24 centimeters longer, which makes it just over 4 meters long. It's also 12 centimeters taller, which makes it 1.6 meters tall, and the width has grown by 2 centimeters. Now that doesn't sound like much, but it's definitely made a difference because the interior, as you'll see when we get in there, does feel a bit more spacious. It gets pretty much the same engine as a Yaris. Most new Toyotas these days are in fact hybrids, and so this one is also hybrid. It's a 1.5 3-cylinder unit, puts out 114 brake horsepower. It's good for a top speed of 106 miles per hour and 0 to 62 miles per hour acceleration of 11.2 seconds, which sounds slow, but actually is not too bad. Now, it is a little bit heavier. It's about 90 kilograms heavier, so that's like a heavy mate is tagging along with you, and that probably affects the fuel consumption a little bit, so it's slightly less, but it's still not bad at 57.6 miles per gallon at the top end combined, and CO2 emissions is 117 grams per kilometer. Now this one is a front wheel drive. The transmission is a CVT on this one, like it is with all hybrids, but you can also get it as an all-wheel drive as an option as well. Prices for these start from £23,000 and they rise to nearly £29,000 for this range topping model here. Now there are 5 trim levels, and basically at the lower end of the spectrum you're talking about £2,000 more than a regular Yaris, rising to about between £4,000 to £6,000 more when you get to this level. I'll put the specs for those trim levels on the screen so you can see them. So this car is obviously bigger than a regular Yaris, but as SUVs go, it's still quite a compact thing. Is it practical? Well, as usual, we'll check out the boot, we'll look at the interior cabin, and of course we'll take it for a drive right after this. So it has actually a power lift tailgate on this, so I just press the button and wait for it to go up. Quite distinctive at the back, as you can see. In here, very, very practical, because it's got this sort of waterproof thing here on here as well on the back of the seats, and the seats, as you can see, are split folding. This of course can be lifted up, and under that is a regular floor, which interestingly is a split fold floor, so actually it comes up in 2 parts. But once you open that, you get a little bit more space in there. I would say another about 10 centimeters of depth, and you can actually lift that up as well, and underneath there you've got more compartments and more space to put little bits and pieces as well. So actually very spacious and very practical. 397 litres of space there with the seats up. Let's see what the rear passenger space is like. Right then, so this is my first time getting into the car. Front seat is set for me. I'm 6'2" with long legs. Looks a little tight. Okay, well, actually, it is tight. No question about that. With this seat in this position, with my position set on that seat, that's very, very tight. I think I could only manage very short distances like this. After that, it would start to get uncomfortable. Let's be honest though, this is a Yaris, and that would pretty much be the same case in a Yaris for me as well. So that's not altogether unusual. For 4 normal size adults, probably there will be enough room that they could travel a bit further than I can. But for me, there's a bit of stretchiness here, which means that there's just about adequate room for my knees, but down here it gets very tight where the shins are, although there's plenty of room for the feet. That's not an issue. So other than that, You know, the back I'm a little bit upright in this car, but it's not too bad. Plenty of shoulder room, headroom plentiful, not an issue. Nice bit of trim on the door, so that's quite good. I like the shape that they've got here. You get nothing on the back here on the center console. There's no vents, no USB plugs or anything like that. You just get a pocket, and you do get Isofix Chelsea anchor points. You also get this quite natty yellow stitching trim on these leather seats. That's what it's like back here. What's it like in the front? Let's find out. Yes, okay, got it, managed. Thank you. There we are, inside the new Yaris Cross. So what's it like? Well, let's start it up. Starter button is here. And this is mostly digital in the middle here. It's a digital display with some dials that light up on each side. Look at that cloud burst that you had there on the screen. Now the screen here is a 9-inch multimedia touchscreen. You can see, I don't know if you heard, but the engine just came on. So there's different settings on here. And if you scroll through, I mean, it tells you the direction that you're in, and you can see the flow of the battery power from the engine to the battery, or whether it's going from the battery to the wheels, etc., etc. But on this bit here, there is a ratio where it tells you the EV ratio. So this is quite interesting. It looks at your total driving time over a journey, and what it will do is it will tell you the EV ratio. So it will tell you how much of that was done on electric only, and then it gives you an EV score. So based on your driving, it tells you how economical or environmentally friendly you are. The other information on here obviously is how the power is being used, so whether it's being charged, whether it's running in eco mode, or whether you're using power. Now talking of power, the driving modes are down here, and in these modes you can click them. You go power, it just sort of gives you a red road, and then you go on to normal, or the eco gives you a green road, and normal is just black. So there's the three modes, and there's the differences. There is an EV mode as well. When there's enough juice in the battery, you can put it into EV mode and it will only run on electric power. Good seating position, no issues at all with space up front for me, despite the issues that I had in the back. I have sat and driven in this car obviously for a while now, and I found it to be actually really comfortable. So up in the front, even if you're tall, it's not going to be an issue. If you have tall passengers, you might want to reconsider. Even with my long legs, I've had no problem whatsoever. There is a footrest, but even that is not too obtrusive, and it gives me enough room to, as you can see, to have my leg at a quite nice angle there. Nice little design, so the pods here for your vent, pod for the instrumentation, kind of floating screen there, and the vents are underneath. There's a nice tray here to put your phones on, so that's quite handy. And then there's another tray down here. Now in here there's a power supply, a traditional power supply, but also you get a USB plug there as well. You also get heated seats on this. There's your climate control. This is your connectivity. Now on this car, it's got the JBL, you can see there, it's got the JBL premium sound system, and it has this one's got a color heads-up display. So it's got a 10-inch heads-up display, which is a projection from here, and I can see that ahead. That's really useful on this car. It's got a reversing camera. Let's have a look at that. And you can see the full reversing. 18-inch alloy wheels on this, by the way, and the bitone roof is the spec on this car. Safety things, you got the pre-collision system with pedestrian and cyclist recognition, emergency steering assist. It's got adaptive cruise control as well on it, departure, lane departure, it's got all of that, and automatic high beam as well as e-call, which is for emergency. This is all pretty straightforward to use, so you just click on there and you can go through there. You got there, this is your home screen, that's your volume, and that's also just gives you different information. You can wirelessly connect certainly your Apple CarPlay, I'm assuming your Android Auto as well. You can just wirelessly connect that, so you don't actually have to plug that in, but you can do that as well. Nice little cabin here, and actually when I'm sitting here, I am feeling a little bit taller than I would be, and there's a nice bit of gold trim there to match the exterior here on the door as well. Look at that. And I am feeling like I'm in a bigger, taller car than a Yaris. A Yaris, in fact, nowadays, they've made it a little bit more sporty, a little bit more laid back and laid down. And so what's it like on the go? Let's find that out next. It's a nice little road actually, so rather than drive it in normal, and I have been driving it for a while now, I've actually done today about 60 miles, and I've averaged 51.6 miles per gallon, which is actually really good. And part of that has been in this mode, which is the power mode, which is the sports mode, so I'm now in the sports mode. So this is a car that's small, it's compact, it's ideal for the city. That's basically what it is, what it's designed to do, what it's meant to do, what it's engineered to do. But here we are in a sort of B-road environment, and it's managing to stay up. with things, with progress, or the progress that I'm demanding of it, put it that way. Not the sharpest steering in the world, but the steering is pretty accurate and faithful, so that works. Brakes are pretty good, linear, strong enough. I haven't had to deploy them to any great excess, but they've been fine so far. Turning, as you can see, I mean, it's responsive enough, accurate enough, and you can get off the power, get off the brakes, get onto the power without any issue, and that works quite well. I mean, the power, again, there is power. There's enough power. You've got enough momentum, you know, and it builds up momentum quite nicely. But you know, it's not instant. It's not something that is going to snap your neck back or anything like that. It's something that, well, you know, okay, there's more than enough for the requirements of this car. Put it that way. That's not to say you can't have a little bit of fun with it when you're out in a place like this, which I have been. So on this road, the ride is the road surface is not great here. So we are now looking at what the ride is like, and you know, there's a little bit of jitteriness, but overall it's still very composed. I mean, again, this road is actually really bad, so all things considered, I'm, you know, pretty much straight and level, and quite comfortable actually in this situation. So the ride is actually quite good. Around town it's been pretty good. The only thing is that as is typical of a hybrid, I found the ride to be a little bit rigid, as noticed in the past, where there are cars obviously with the batteries taking up part of the floor space, and you get that kind of extra transmission of sort of sound and movement into the cabin. That's not to say that it's a level of harshness, it's just that, you know, there's an extra level of jitteriness to it that becomes apparent. So again, full power CVT gearbox, obviously, so no real step changes. It just seems to be constant linear acceleration, but the acceleration is pulling the car along. It's not something that's urging the car along, it's pulling along. Again, like I said, the car is designed for city driving, and for that purpose, I mean, driving around northwest London, I never found it wanting for power. It's only when I'm in this environment and I'm kind of like, you know, demanding extra throttle from it, that it's like, oh really? We're doing this now? Even in power mode. But other than that, I mean, it's a very comfortable environment. I'm sitting in a very comfortable position here. Got good visibility all around. I mean, to be honest, this is a Yaris, but it feels like a bigger car. I know it's an SUV version, I know, you know, that's kind of what they were going for, but because as you're sitting a little bit higher, you get that sense of being in a larger car, having a little bit more of a presence about you, and having a little bit more lookout at what's going on beyond you. So in all of that, it's actually quite useful. So the gearbox itself has been very easy to use. I mean, it's a typical hybrid gearbox that you get from Toyota. CVT, it's got that B mode, but other than that, it's straightforward, not an issue, and it's pretty much like the car, really. The car is straightforward, and I think that's deliberate. That's how the car is engineered, that's how it's designed. This is not a car that has any surprises or anything unusual about it. It's a car that you're able to just get into it and drive it. Everything is as it should be, everything works as it should be, everything is intuitive, and everything is exactly where you need it to be. It's a car that is very accommodating, and a car that is very aware of making sure that it's demanding the least of you on your journey. And in that sense, you know, you've got to say that it's really good and it's really fit for purpose. That's exactly, you know, what it's meant to be. That's exactly the sort of customer that it's designed for. Is it enjoyable? Is it fun? I mean, out here on roads like this, I'm still, you know, enjoying my drive. So there's no question about that. And you know, if you tickle that the torque, and just know when to just go around the corner and just keep it a little bit on the accelerator, and then know when to bring the power on again, then yes, you can have a little bit of fun with it. So that's not really an issue. There hasn't been anything like torque steer. It hasn't really been scrabbling for grip or anything like that. It's more inclined towards mild understeer than anything else. That's exactly as you would expect it to be, and that's obviously the safe way of doing it. So that's entirely legitimate. So here we are. I mean, we've got some nice little S-bends here, and you know, just, you know, carrying considerable or sufficient speed through these corners, and it is well accurately positioned as you'd expect it to be. I mean, it's enjoyable enough, you know. Anything anything short of a sports car. It's not bad at all, really. Yeah. Turn in, you can actually even adjust the angle of the car mid-corner on the throttle, so you can do that. So, you know, as you can typically with a car that's slightly prone to understeer, or feels like it's prone to understeer, if you find that the tangent is widening, you can lift off a little bit, just tighten that line. So you can have a little play with it. Pretty sweet. Other than that, really, I mean, it's a car that is, and I've cruised up on the motorway as well on it, and again, it wasn't affected too much by its height or any wind buffeting or anything like that. It was very smooth on the motorway, and it was able to hold its own on the motorway as well. It wasn't any problem at all cruising at the sort of speeds that you would expect it to do. And again, as you've seen, the main thing about it is the economy, because, you know, even like now, I mean, it's gone down a little bit since we've been pushing it a bit harder, but it's still at 50 miles per gallon, so that's not bad at all. In the seat, I mean, you know, even as a tall person, I have no issues whatsoever with the seating. You know, you would think that maybe because I'm, you know, with my long legs and stuff, I would have some sort of an issue, but it hasn't really raised any kind of concern whatsoever. And I've now spent, I would say, 2 hours at the wheel of this car, and I'm fine, absolutely fine, no issue whatsoever. The back is good, the legs are good, no problem. Room all around is good. Aircon and everything is good. The stereo is pretty decent on this thing. It works best. You get a crisper, nicer sound when you plug in your phone and you listen to your own tunes. It seems to work better. Slight bit of vibration on the radio from one of the speakers, but I think I only detected that on the radio, not on the sort of my own tunes on my phone. So maybe that's just unique to that aspect of it. So there you go then. This is the Toyota Yaris Cross. An all-around pretty excellent car, a perfect companion for the urban environment, I would say, very much so, because, you know, it has those compact dimensions, despite the fact that when you're sitting in it, you feel like you're in a crossover or in a mini SUV, and yet, you know, you're not worried about the width, you're not worried about the size, you know, you can get into any parking space, it's got the camera and all the rest of it, so it's a very handy size, very handy car. It's got just exactly the sort of performance and dynamics and ability that you would need for a car that you're going to be using mostly for urban driving and urban chores. But having said that, it has no issues on the motorway, and if you're going to go out and find some B roads and enjoy yourself, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. It's not a sports car, it's not the sharpest, most dartiest thing, but it will be an entertaining enough companion for those little jaunts anyway. There you go, thumbs up for the Yaris Cross. Basically ideal for Yaris owners that want something a little bit, that feels a little bit bigger. That's what it is. Let me know what you think of the Yaris Cross, and I look forward to seeing you in the next review. As a Yaris, most new Toyotas these days, I should have done that first. These of course are hybrids. Are you ready? يعني ايش هذا؟ مشكلة يعني. Okay, so
A big shout out and thanks to Jay Williams over at AirTechnic, who are top tier sponsors of Brown Car Guy. Check them out at AirTechnic Co. UK for exhausts, brakes, suspension and body kits. Plus our other major sponsor, Nayagen Solutions. Much appreciation also to tier 4 sponsors, Muhammad Ali Humaid, Tom Conway Gordon and Reza Adil. And of course all these other guys who supporting on Patreon. Brown Car Guy is eternally grateful. Hey, think about joining them over at patreon.com Brown Car Guy. If you can't, don't worry. Just make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel and website. Plus follow on social media by searching for Brown Car Guy.